Let's go.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with an in the away end opposition preview. We're going to do these as much as I can throughout the season, but I thought I had to get one of my favourite opposition YouTube channels and one of my favourite guests, Mike from Blue Boys Network, as we have Everton upcoming on the weekend. How you doing, Mike? Great to see you, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Rich. Yeah, and as always, mate, thanks for having me on. There will be the equivalent on my channel as well, guys. So make sure you like both of them and all sorts. But mate, it's looking up for us, isn't it? You know, we've been in this position over the years now where it's been relegation battles and it's looked a bit messy. But touch wood, we seem much better, more composed this season, and hopefully we'll give you a better game than we have done in the last 12.
Yeah. Well, Aston Villa have got their fair share of bogey teams, but it seems like Aston Villa are one of your bogey teams. So, yeah, hoping from your perspective, you're hoping for a bit of a turn of fortune, change of luck. But just before we get into the game and all everything around it, certain players appearing against Aston Villa. What have you made of Everton's start to the season so far? Because yeah, it just seems like they've had a little bit of a new lease of life.
Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting start, really. You know, it's not necessarily been the easiest or equally the most difficult, but you know, it was a bad performance away at Leeds, the first game of the season, Monday night. Kind of, I still feel like we got robbed by a poor penalty decision, and we could have got a point out of that. It was a good performance against Brighton, but there were some gaps. You know, Jared Branthwaite isn't in the Everton team currently, so again, you know, there is opportunities that will be created for Villa. And then you saw it against Wolves. Everton were very dominant, definitely the best team that day, but yet we still conceded 2 goals, and VAR were talking about that it should have been a penalty for Wolves as well. So Everton could easily have threw that game away. So look, it's positive. Everton is 6 points out of 9, arguably could be 7, but it equally arguably could be 3. So
Mm.
we've just got to keep going. Got to tick on. We've got to make the Hill Dickinson Stadium the worst named stadium in the country, a fortress, and
Yeah.
and that means we've got to beat, as you rightly say, some of our current bogey teams, mate. So hopefully, as I say, we'll give you a tougher game this time than we have done.
Yeah. Well, I fear that. I really do. And I guess part of it as well is the fact that you've got some really good, exciting attacking players. And is this kind of David Moyes throwing the shackles off? Is this what he's always wanted to do? Because he's always had that kind of reputation of being sort of quite, defensive first, get organised. But some of the football that you guys played in that Wolves game was absolutely phenomenal. To be fair.
Yeah, it's interesting really because even Everton fans have forgot some of the football we played under David Moyes 12 years ago. You know, Everton were consistently challenging for Europe. I remember the one season we were fifth and sixth, us two, and Ashley Young scored last minute to win at Goodison,
Mhm.
and it was almost like a good rivalry at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but we played some great football. You know, we had a young Ross Barkley, we had a Kevin Morales, we had a Stephen Pienaar, Leighton Baines, you know, Yakubu, for example. So Everton had some good players and we played good football. It's not like we played ugly football. And I think I think David Moyes is always, and I'm a pro David Moyes. I always have been. But I think he gets a bad rap. I think he
Mm.
gets almost antiquated with the Sean Dyches, the Sam Allardyces, the players, the managers that don't play nice football. But I disagree. David Moyes plays what I would call efficient football. So sometimes it's not the most pretty on the eye, but it gets you results. Or sometimes it can be prettier on the eye, and you know he's using players to link up, and he's creating those spaces, and he's building a team that are doing that now. you'll see very much on Saturday the way that Everton play. It's very much they try to keep the ball in the top third or the middle third of the half, and then they create the chances. Then the pivots change. Then the runs are made, and David Moyes has allowed that freedom to happen. So yeah, David Moyes for me, shackles are off. He's got a board that back him. He's spent some money. The only way for Everton to go now, in my opinion, is up. And I suspect David Moyes will continue to just set up per team to get a result. As simple as that.
Yeah, yeah, and you being a fellow Brummie, but an Evertonian Brummie, you obviously know a lot of Aston Villa supporters. What have you made of Aston Villa's start to the season, and what have your mates been telling you about their thoughts on Villa's start to the season?
Yeah. So look, so where I live is not far away from, for example, from Barn Green, where Jack had a house, or he's still got a house. You know, his mom's lived here and whatever. I've seen him in the Barn Green in a few times, so I live relatively close to that. And when you actually look at the start Villa have made, it's no doubt that it hasn't seemed like Villa, if I'm being honest. You know, I don't think you've quite had the same out of Watkins. I thought the management of Watkins last season was poor anyway. The dog's about to lose its head because we've got a delivery. So 1 second. I don't know if you can hear that. 1 second. You chip in, you talk, and I'll mute myself for a second.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right in terms of how Watkins is managed and how he has been managed in a lot of ways, because he's one of those players who is a purple patch player and he goes on these runs of goals, and when he's fit and firing, when he feels like he's the number one, that's when he's scoring. And there's been a couple of times throughout his career at Aston Villa where they've maybe tried to put that bit of pressure on him. And this could be a Watkins criticism as well, that he's not responded well to it. You know, Danny Ings came in, they wanted to pair him up. It obviously didn't work in that manner. Then Ings does he play because he's maybe a bit more of a goal threat at the time? Then it was Watkins back in. Then obviously John Duran signed. He saw himself as the number one, which a number of strikers would. Why wouldn't you? He started the season so well last season, scored that phenomenal goal against you guys. And it took a little bit of time for Watkins to get back into his stride. Now, it's weird because this pre-season he's had a really good pre-season. He scored in pretty much every game of pre-season for Villa. And obviously this is the old adage that you can't really read too much into pre-season. But as a striker, he probably wanted to be scoring goals. But he hasn't really had any chances that have been presented to him. So in a lot of ways, you can look at Rodgers, you can look at McGinn, you can look at Tielemans, and the way that we've set up, and we've been a bit lethargic. But at the same time, it's like you've got to try and go out and create your own chances. You've got to try and be an influence on the side. You're a senior player in the team. You should be, you know, dropping off the line to receive the ball, trying to make things happen. And I feel like sometimes, and this is probably a bit of an indication of how Villa have been, they've been a bit too safe. They've kind of hid behind, or we're just doing what the manager's told us to do. Whereas sometimes in games, you've almost got to go against sometimes what the manager's telling you to do, even though it's Unai Emery, and go and take the game by the scruff of the neck, go and do something that is out of the ordinary, much like what John Duran used to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to see Watkins because, as I said, look, I personally felt when I was watching those Champions League games last season, which, by the way, Villa Park was magnificent. So everyone watching this, anyone who was there, that PSG game was sensational, and you thoroughly deserved to go through. If I'm being frank,
Yeah.
you were brilliant that night. The noise, the saves Donnarumma was having to make. But I always felt like in the Champions League, he got it wrong. He went with players like Asensio, who, by the way, was the right one to play. But then Rashford was great. But I also thought that you could have had the three of them on the pitch, and that would have been the real. But it was very rare that Rashford and Watkins were on at the same time.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
felt there was opportunities in that Champions League for you, especially that game, because I actually think
Mm-hmm.
you could have beat PSG. You did on the night, but I think you could have
Mm-hmm.
beat them in the round. So that's where I think it might have hit his confidence. And then you're right. By all accounts, pre-season was great for him, but he looks like he has struggled, and it's like lethargic. It's whether he wants it, it's whether he was expecting a move. Maybe I don't know, but what you want is now that he's come back off international, he wasn't there, but he's had that break, no games. Maybe he gets his head down now, and now he goes, and that's what look as an outsider looking into Villa. That's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm
Yeah,
expecting. There's no noise around PSR now. There's no noise around do we need to sell? Do we need to buy? Whatever. You've got your team. And this is where Unai Emery, in my opinion, is the best. He was the best when he come in for Gerrard, and he took that team that was languishing at the bottom of the league. Shouldn't have been, by the way. It was far too good. But
mm,
it was languishing sort of 15th, 16th. You got to Europe. He then stepped you up again. For me, I think Villa, after this break, switch on, and now you'll be the Villa team that, let's be fair, we're all probably expecting you to be, if I'm being honest.
yeah, yeah. I think it's hard to kind of accept sometimes an excuse of or a reason of PSR and the restrictions and the transfer window and kind of players being a bit uncertain. You know, this player could be leaving, like you said, Watkins or Martinez was apparently leaving, and then he wasn't. Rogers had a lot of speculation behind him, and Ramsey ended up being the one that went. So you can understand it to a point, and I think the first three games, as you said, could have easily been turned out to be 7 or 3, or obviously ended up being 6 points for you. Aston Villa could have been 3, 4. It's ended up being 1. So it's about picking up the points when you're not quite firing. You're not quite on all cylinders. You're not quite sure of what your squad's going to look like, and it's. I guess this is when the season kind of is a bit more settled when that window closes. So maybe I think these next 4 or 5 games will be a bit more as to what each club is going to be moving forward into the season.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to mention is, Aston Villa, whether they've had a rough start, and let's be fair, 1 point in three is a poor start from Villa standard. Of
Absolutely.
course it is. But equally, you're 3 games in, and I would argue that you were in a much worse position, for example, under Gerrard, and you ended up finishing in Europe. It's only 3 games, so
Mm.
realistically, you've got all the time in the world to turn this round. You've got all the time in the world to get to get the players playing again like Unai wants, and stop that lethargicness and be able to attack teams. And look, before we go any deeper, that's my biggest concern going into this game. My biggest concern is we're playing Villa at exactly the wrong time. They needed the break. Everton didn't need the break, and now we're playing each other, and that scares me a little bit.
Well, let's get on to the game because it's historically been a really good game. Like you said, loads of great games over the years. Everton, Aston Villa kind of seem like clubs that have quite a bit in common as well in terms of how they are and how they operate. But going into this, we were chatting before we came on, but going into this new stadium, you're obviously not keen on the name, but the actual stadium looks absolutely incredible. So, how have you found it so far, and the early games in this stadium that Everton has it really inspired the players to play so far?
Yeah, I think it's interesting really because like any club that goes into a new stadium, you do have to find your feet, you find your routine, you start working things out, and technically we've only really had this is only our second league game there, and it's only our third game in terms of competitive game with Mansfield being the other one. So you're still finding your feet as a fan. You're still
Yeah.
working out the best way to get there, what food to eat, what drinks to eat. And it sounds really weird, but all those routines that we were setting at Goodison Park, we've been there for years and hundreds of years, etc. And it does take time. When the players come out, um, I'm fairly confident there isn't a stadium in this country that is as loud,
Hmm.
because of the way that the stadium's built. So the noise, the sirens, the war noise that comes out, it is deafening. But then you can tell that as fans, we're still not used to the when do we get off our seats? It doesn't make a noise when we get off our seat. At Goodison, when Everton fans would stand up, the noise of the clapping of the wooden seats, that doesn't happen anymore. So there's still little things like that we've got to, the
You've
right
got to get
times
that
to.
song as well. That's that famous Everton song where it's like "Get down to Goodison Park." How can you say "Get down to the Hill Dickinson Stadium"?
Mate, you can't. But by all means, look, the fortunate position for Everton. It's a bit weird, but we still own Goodison. The
Yeah, yeah,
ladies
yeah,
play there,
yeah,
so we still sort of sing that song, but it's just got a
yeah.
different meaning now. But yeah, mate, absolutely, it's an interesting situation. It's very much the foundations of the future, and it does take a bit of time. But while you're there, obviously, if you're unfortunate or from your perspective and fortunate from our perspective to hear an Everton goal, um, I'm fairly confident you'll go wow because of the
Yeah.
noise. And look, even as away fans, Villa, let's be realistic, let's be straight. Villa away support is phenomenal. Always has been, always will be. Very much like Everton's. They're loud, they're aggressive.
Hmm.
They'll do what they need to do to back their team. And the whole stadium will hear it. The whole stadium will hear it because for the same reason it does for Everton, it will do for Villa. So yeah, I think you'll thoroughly enjoy your day out, Rich. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy the stadium. I think the fans will come in their numbers and be great as always. But it is a stadium. We want to make a fortress, and we've got to do our bit to do that, haven't we? As a home team, you
Yeah, yeah,
can't just roll over and
absolutely.
have your belly tickle.
No, no, exactly. You've got to make it. Villa didn't lose there for a year. Unfortunately, we lost in our last home game against our bogey side, Crystal Palace. So, yeah, you want to make it home. You want to make it intimidating as soon as you possibly can. Let's get on to some of the players for Everton. Obviously, we're going to talk about the inevitable Mr. Grealish, but got some really, really exciting players. You talk about Branthwaite. I'm not sure if he's fully fit, but you've got Keenan Dewsbury Hall, who started off really well. I mean, Iliman and Jai, what a player he is, by the way. He's phenomenal. And then obviously Jack on the left hand side, who seems to have a new lease of life. It must be exciting times at the minute.
Yeah, I mean it's weird really because the defensive shape, we know Everton's defensive shape, it doesn't change. The midfield too, James Garner started the season fantastically well. And Idrissa Gana guy, he's Idrissa Gana guy. I mean,
Just
he
keeps
never
going,
lets you
doesn't
down.
he? Keeps going.
Mate,
I mean, it's
he's a
mad that he was at Villa in 10 years ago now.
mate, he's been, he was the best 8 million quid we signed, I think, at the time from you guys. Obviously, you'd had a poor season and
Mm.
subsequently whatever. Um, but it was really nice when he come back from PSG, and he's been brilliant. He's been brilliant, and he keeps going. He works hard. He'll put his foot in, and he'll be combative in that combative midfield. It is combative. McGinn, combative. It will be.
Mm.
But then it is that step in front. Jack Grealish on the left, Keenan Dewsbury Hall, fantastic. Iliman and Jai's been playing on the right, but he interlinks with Grealish, so they swap. He's been creating all sorts of problems. Iliman and Jai, I don't know if people saw that clip of him online from his game midweek for Senegal, and he
No, I
was,
haven't seen it.
mate, honestly, the skills he pulls out, the ability in close. I haven't seen a player like it. If I'm being honest, I haven't seen a player like it, and his close ball control. uh, I mean, he can do things with a football that I've genuinely never seen an Everton player do. The worry for me is obviously keeping hold of him, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
we have that problem. But you know, we bought him for £12 million, and
Mm.
what we've got out of him is probably a 50, 60 million pound player, if not potentially more as the season goes on. So yeah, he is a real threat to Villa, and if he's up against Matty Cash, for example, on the left hand side, I fancy his chances against the Matty Cash, for example. Um, he's physically strong. He'll hurt teams, and then obviously up front, I'm still on the fence about Beto, if I'm being honest. But he does
He
get
makes a
goals.
nuisance of himself, doesn't he?
Yeah,
What's this other lad up front? What's the other lad called?
yeah. So we signed Thieno Barry from Villarreal for
That's
around
it.
38 million euros, and he's a young lad. He's 21. He's or 22. He's had 4 moves in the last 4 years. He's progressed very quickly. But you know what it's like. The Premier League can come at you quick and difficult. And you had John Duran the first season, and he probably didn't look like the striker you had the second season, if you get what I mean. So he's
Mhm.
probably in that ballpark. He's a handful, but he's not going to start the game. Not yet. He's not. He's not ready, in my opinion. So, yeah, look, your job is going to be to control Jack and control Dewsbury Hall. They're interlink and then dealing with Enjoy. And if
Yeah.
you do that, you will get at the Everton defence.
Mm.
We are losing our best player in Branthwaite at the minute. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a tight
Yeah.
game, I think, for me.
It is. It all generally is, isn't it? It generally is, particularly at away or Everton at home. It generally is quite a tight game. What have you made of Jack and his kind of almost like it's like the throwback to when he was at Villa, 5-6 years ago. Like it's almost instant the change in how he's playing. Like, is that an indication of like him just needing this move, fresh start? Is it an indication of the shackles that Pep put on him and kind of him having to sort of adapt to that? Because it's just incredible just to see almost, like I say, almost instantly within the first 10 minutes of that game at home against Brighton, he took it down the left hand side, crossed it in, and he scored. And then it was just from there, and the passing, the creativity, the running at players, the output. It's not just doing the skill for the sake of it. And it's almost like, as an Aston Villa supporter, I'm like, oh, we should have signed him. It's like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So look, obviously I've got Villa friends, and as soon as he signed, they were all like that. None of them had wrote him off, and that again, that speaks volumes of Villa fans. That got all the time in the world for you, but no one wrote him off. Everyone was saying, look, if you get Jack Grealish that was at Villa, he is going to be your best player by an absolute country mile. And look, we haven't actually seen the best of Jack. I'll
No,
be
no, he's
straight with you.
still
At
got
the
to get
minute,
fitness. Yeah.
yeah, the minute in Enjoy is better. I don't necessarily think Everton fans would say that, but I think Enjoy is better in terms of the way that he's been breaking down lines for us, and Jack has linked up with him very well. But Jack looks a bit slow at times. He doesn't look quite as nimble as he was, when he was
Mm.
at Villa 5 years ago, etc. But Jack's IQ, his footballing brain, is head and shoulders above anyone. I'll be on a football pitch that we've been on so far. Brighton, Wolves, Leeds, Everton,
Just the way you
Mansfield.
pass that ball into Dewsbury Hall, like to to
The
to,
flick,
to
it's
lift.
just
Yeah, 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 and
and
just to look so natural when he's doing it as well. That's the
yeah, and
difference.
and that's the thing. As he gets more fitness, he is only going to get better. Look, and we know this game's going to be massive for Jack. Um, whether he goes in it and maybe he will go into this game thinking maybe I could have been playing for Aston Villa now. Who
Mm,
knows, right?
mm,
But realistically, he's got 4 assists in 2 games for Everton. He could become the first player in, I think, certainly in Premier League history. I always try to use whole history, but certainly Premier League history to get 2 assists in 3 games, which would be amazing. But he's just been a breath of fresh air. He is a typical Brummie. He's typical Jack the lad, says it as it is. It's funny. He's charismatic. He gets everyone on his side. Jack Grealish is the face of Everton Football Club right now. And I
mm.
think Everton will do absolute everything in their power to sign him at the end of this loan. There is an option to buy at £50 million. £50 for a player that's going to be 31, I think, is probably steep. But if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to make it incredibly difficult for Everton not to do that. To be honest, he's
Mm.
been excellent.
Yeah, yeah. On to some of the Villa players, because we had that transfer window, which was a bit manic, but we managed to sign Victor Lindelof, Jadon Sancho, Harvey Elliott right on deadline day. What do you make of those signings? And then you've mentioned about Ollie Watkins and Tielemans and I think last time we were on you talked about how good Morgan Rogers was. How do you what do you make of the signings? And then who are you kind of wary of from a Villa perspective?
So I think I'm mixed on your transfer business, if I'm being honest. So look, I think Harvey Elliott is a good player. I think he can help make you tick,
Mm.
but I think you've got players that do that anyway. So I was a little bit, I don't know. He's a good player. Does he take Villa forward? I don't know. Jadon Sancho for me, and this might just be my opinion. You guys might shoot me down. You might know more. You might have seen him in training or whatever, but he's never done it for me. He had one, maybe two good seasons at Dortmund, and he looked like a world beater. But even then, it was very direct. I would argue he wasn't like the most skillful. It was just beating people on pace and scoring. We never saw that when he moved to the Premier League the first time. I don't think we saw it when he's moved to Chelsea and various teams. I don't get the price tag that's been on his head. I don't get the wages. I just don't get the move. And for me, I'll be straight. I think it's a mistake by Villa signing him. To be honest, I think it is a real mistake Villa signing him because I think they could have signed someone who will cost less but hurt teams more. But you guys know better than me. You've seen the training videos of him. You know how good he could be. But for me, I've never been enamored with him, and I wish every player the best of luck. I just don't think the Premier League's for him, to be honest.
Mm. I'm with you, mate. I think that I like Harvey Elliott as a player. I think he's really good. I think he's at that stage of his career where Villa is a good move for him to kind of kick to really establish himself. Is he what Aston Villa need though? I think that's the point that we're trying to make. Like for me, I think we needed a right back. I think we needed a better centre back. Obviously, Lindelof is there as cover, but I think there was probably better deals to be done. And I think we need a striker like in the mold of a Beto or in the mold of what we had with John Duran, who is different to Wally Watkins, who can be a handful. The game is changing more now. It's about kind of getting the ball into the box a bit quicker. You're seeing long throws, you're seeing long balls, you're seeing this kind of trying to win second balls high up the pitch. And I don't know if Aston Villa are set up for that right now. That being said, I think we needed a bit of freshness in the squad. I think we needed to maybe put a bit of pressure on someone like a Morgan Rogers to kind of get him out of his bit of a malaise. So maybe that's something that Harvey Elliott can do, and he can be buzzing around and get on the ball quick and do that kind of stuff. But I'm with you with Sancho as well. Like the jury's way so far out for me on him that it's I just don't see it. I'm the same as you. There's lots of Villa fans have kind of become revisionist on how good he is because he signed for Villa, but I've never seen him have a good game if I'm being brutally honest. So
No,
I hope he has. Hope he does it for Villa, but yeah, it seems like a strange one for me. It seems like look, we need someone in. Let's do this because we need bodies in. But yeah, we'll see. I think what it does do though, it gives us some options on the bench. It gives some options to change games because if you looked at the bench on the other day, it was full of young players, and now I think we've got one or two injuries, but we've got quite a few options now to come on and maybe cause a bit of change the game, cause a bit of damage because same again. I think games are won and lost with the quality of substitutes you can bring on.
yeah, spot on. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And look, if you get 20 minutes out of him at his best, then he is a good player. But
Precisely.
you
Yeah.
need to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned just before we finish up, you mentioned you think tight game, massive game. To be fair, always is a great occasion. Are you seeing it like that? Are both teams going to be a bit cagey, like going into this first game after the international break? Or do you think Everton are going to want to get out the traps quick? How do you see it panning out?
So I think Everton will get out the traps quick. I think they have to, if I'm being honest, because as the home team, I think they're going to have to try and assert some dominance being the home team. That being said, Villa are a very good football team and they keep the ball well. So
Mm.
that's a challenge. But realistically, I think, yeah, for me, Everton get out the traps quick, try and get an early goal, try and dominate and control the game, see the game out. It's not very easy against a team that was challenging Champions League football and will certainly be challenging Europe this season. So it's easier said than done, but that probably will be the Everton game plan, I suspect.
Yeah. Can we trouble you for a score prediction, Mike? Because I'm sure I'll be doing the reverse on your show, on your preview. So what are you thinking ahead of Saturday's game?
Yeah, so I mean, look, this is possibly being overconfident. So this is not a dig at Villa at all. But you sort of live or die by your sword, don't you? So I didn't actually give a straight score prediction in mine and John's preview. We both think Everton will win. I went with either 3-1 or 2-1. Um, I'm I don't know, but the realistic problem is Everton are going into this game having not beaten you in 12, 9 wins, 3 draws. I could see this game easily being a draw as well, if I'm being honest.
Mm, Well, I think I'd take a goal right now. So I'd take a shot on
What?
target, to be fair.
Yeah. So what? Just how are you going? So out of interest, and I know we'll do this on my channel, but for
Yeah.
your, like, how are you going to beat us? What's your plan? Do you think?
I was just saying, I was just thinking then when you mentioned about sort of out the traps, quickly getting the first goal. I think Villa will want to control the game in the early exchanges, but equally getting that first goal will be so important. If
Yeah.
you guys get that first goal, then pretty much at the moment it's felt like game over, where all teams know how to kind of set up against Villa, and they haven't really had the imagination or the pace of play or anything to get through. Now that might change slightly with one or two more options that he's got, but I think he's going to go to try and control it a bit more, and then he might sort of open up more in that sort of second half, second period of the game. I can't see us trying. I can't see us being expansive. I think he'll try and get a 1-0, maybe 2-0, and kind of. I'm almost hoping he kind of does that as well. Kind of goes back to old school Emery, where we went 1-0 up, went and maybe then got a goal on the break and sort of almost went with six at the back just to be really organised, and that's kind of what I'm hoping he goes back to. But yeah, I think it's going to be. I think the first goal is absolutely crucial for either team and how they then set up or how they then react to what the opposition's going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
fair comments,
yeah.
mate. Fair comments.
But I'm looking forward to the game nonetheless. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, great occasion, and yeah, it always feels like Christmas again or something when the international break's been. You got football ready to come, and I don't think there's any better game than Everton Aston Villa. So,
Yeah,
Mike, it's
man.
been an absolute pleasure, mate. Where can people find you if they've not discovered your channel already?
Yeah, so guys, it's Blue Boys Network. We're on all the platforms that these guys are on. So yeah, just come and follow us. Come and leave a comment. Always best intentions. So yeah, hopefully, hopefully you don't do well this weekend, but you do well afterwards. All right? Is that fair? Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair, mate. I'll let you off. I'll let you off. Right, we will be back with the boys later on. I think maybe Friday for the preview with the Villa Park Pod lads. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll have instant reaction. I might even do it from outside the ground. We'll see if I'm in a fit state to do that. We'll have Lions Raw match reaction as well. So plenty of shows coming up. Hit that subscribe button. As you know, we've just hit 6,000. We're on the road to 10K, so please help us get there. Like, subscribe, get your comments in as well, your thoughts on Everton. Any questions you got for Mike as well, get them in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa.